Hello and welcome to the Creatives Off the Clock podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Whitehouse of SPW Design Media. Whether you are a creative person on or off the clock, we are so much more than what we create. On this podcast, I lift up stories, experiences, and passions of folks in our creative community and really dive into what caring and cultivating space for our creative self looks like. Thank you so much for listening. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be back with another episode. This time I have my good friend, Olivia, with me, and we're going to chat about all things crafty, creativity, etc. So I just would like, Olivia, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Olivia Phelan Heiser. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm currently a law student in Wisconsin.
Amazing. And we have a pretty interesting story of how we know each other. Do you want to kick it off?
I can kick it off. So, Steph and I met in 2020 when we both did a year of service in Denver, Colorado with the Episcopal Service Corps. So, we lived together in a house for a year while we both served different nonprofit agencies in the Denver area. It was lovely. So we were at different agencies, so we were working at different places, but we're together and kind of serving the population in Denver and just living day-to-day community together in Christian community. It was lovely
Yes.
and challenging.
Literally, I was just thinking that. And I think traditionally the program had it where you didn't meet the people that you were going to be living with until like the day the program started. So, because of
Mhm.
COVID, we were, they called it quarantation. So, we had like 2 weeks apart in a retreat center in the mountains, and we all had our own room, but we got to know each other for 2 weeks before the program actually started, which was really nice because there were four of us total and we were all so different. But that was probably one of my favorite things from the year. Just this, we were so different.
Yeah, the quarantation was really special, being able to know each other really deeply before we started the year together. And then we had check-in calls to kind of establish
Mm-hmm.
some COVID boundaries. And in previous years, they didn't have those check-in calls to at least sort of know kind of who you were going to be living with. So I'm glad we had that. Um, yeah, so it was a special year,
Special time. So
special time.
can you tell the listeners, the dear public, um, just about yourself? Kind of what is Olivia's essence?
Oh man. Um, a vet recently described my dog as anxious but friendly. So if I were to describe my essence, I think my dog takes after me and that I'm anxious but friendly. I'd
That checks out.
say
That checks out.
that's that's where you start. But after Steph and I did our service year together, 2020 to 2021, I stayed in Denver for another year working remotely, and then just moved from Denver to Wisconsin in 2022 to start law school. So now I'm a law student and Wisconsinite, a little scrawny. And um, yeah, so that's kind of the big changes in my life lately. As a crafter,
Mm.
I am mostly sewing right now and recently got into quilting in the past year. But what's funny is I really wasn't into like crafting or being creative as much in college. It was really after college and like stuff when we met that I think I was more actively or at least intentionally exploring creativity as a practice. Like I didn't, it wasn't a priority for me earlier. So um, yeah.
Well, that being said, do you have a first creative memory you can kind of think of? I know you said you didn't quite
Yes.
prioritize it in your life, but surely there's a spark in there.
Yeah, I think I didn't think of myself as an artist or like somebody who had a medium of choice in college or anything like that, but definitely earlier throughout childhood, I was more creative. My mom talks about how she used to leave me just sitting at a table with like scissors and paper, like just children's like fun scissors, paper flying and making fun shapes. I also used to love making my family little letters and
Mm.
putting a sticker on the letter and then making them a little mailbox out of like these magnet toys that we had and then giving them their little letter of love in the magnet mailbox that I made for them. So, which still tracks because I think that I love gifting crafts. I think that
Mm-hmm.
like that is my big draw to crafting now. Um, Another early creative memory, this was in first or second grade, started making earrings. Um,
Yes. Wow.
yeah, and my mom, my mom sold them at work to her coworkers, and I guess my mom tells this story where there was one time that we were out and about in the car, and my my mom was like, I guess I'd said to my mom, we need to get home so I can keep making my earrings. Like there are orders. I need to keep making them. So an early experience of monetizing the hobbies. And then I employed my older sister as my first employee,
Nice.
and like gave her, 70/30 cut. So yeah, so those were the first creative memories. I think my first memory of sewing, so I started sewing only super recently. We took sewing at my middle school in seventh grade.
Yep,
We
same.
had like a home ec class, yeah, and like I think it's amazing how much the muscle memory, like the body just it remembers it. You're
Mm-hmm.
threading the needle and stuff. Um, but during COVID, I saw some people making their own masks, and so I tried to make my own masks hand sewing. And then my mom was like, "Oh, we just have like a sewing machine. You should just try to do it on the sewing machine."
Mm.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you take the 2D fabric and then you create a 3D utilitarian object. This is incredible." So from there, so this was before, it was like immediately before I left for Denver for our service year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I sewed for like 10 days straight, like
Mm-hmm.
until like 2 in the morning, like with and I love, yeah, I just was like going through my closet and looking at clothes. It was very clothing based
Mm-hmm.
initially, and I think still is largely about clothing and fashion. But was just looking at stuff that I would love to like give away or thrift or try to consign, and was like, okay, I could make this dress into a two-piece outfit with just like an elastic and a single sewing line,
Mm-hmm.
stitch like line. So that was kind of how it started, and it was getting to the point where I was falling asleep and thinking about sewing. And that's felt like if I'm really in the middle of a
Wow.
project, like I will like I'll just be like I'll have dreams about sewing. I'll be like,
Mm.
so that was how it all began.
Yeah.
um Yes, that's my first memory of sewing. Then actually immediately before we left for Denver, we lost power. So I had to I like had to stop sewing. It like forced me to stop. There was a really big storm. So yeah.
You say that, you're really in it and your brain is thinking about it subconsciously. And would you say that time seems to kind of stop? You don't really realize, you maybe started at 4 p.m. and then you look up and it's 11 p.m. and you have,
Definitely.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely get into the flow state. My Another thing I love to do while sewing is just listening to audiobooks. And that you'll just fly through an audiobook,
Mhm.
So,
I should do that. I could have read so much more books this year if I had just done that. But
mm,
I'm like on such a nonfiction kick too that I
mm.
just, yeah, I'm. It's been a struggle getting myself to like commit to finishing a book, whether that's like orally or like physically.
Yeah. So this was something that I wanted to talk about, was like multitasking while crafting. Because like
Yes.
I don't know if my desire to listen to audiobooks while crafting is like or like while cooking, I'm often listening to something
Mm-hmm.
while running. And I've been flying through books. I read almost 40 books this year, not to
Holy
well,
crap, that's awesome.
read or listened to. I
Okay.
think largely because of listening while running, or while sewing. But yeah, so I'm on a real book kick right now. Um, but I don't know if it takes away from the flow of just creating the art, you know?
No, no, I don't think it takes away from it. I was doing something very similar. I wanted to make ornaments this year for Christmas, and then there was just too much going on and it was causing me more stress than joy. So I was like, all right, this is when I know that I need to
Yeah,
stop and just turn around. But
yeah.
when I had started, was in one of those flow states going from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., making my little Christmas trees. They were like cinnamon sticks and then horizontal like branches that I cut off of like
Hmm.
a man-made wreath. So it was like pine, but like
Hmm.
not real. So it was fun. But I
Hmm.
was listening to a myriad of like Brene Brown podcasts back to back to back. And for me, it's like
Hmm.
my hands, like you talked about with sewing, the muscle memory is just so there and so cute. Like my hands know what
Hmm.
they're doing and I'm very in tune to what my hands are doing. But like, do you ever, when you're reading a book, your eyes like go way faster than your actual comprehension? You have to like go back and read what you just read. Well, my brain kind of does that when I'm crafting. And
Hmm.
like, it's nice because my brain is like processing and like making pictures and stuff, but my hands are kind of on autopilot. So I'm getting a lot out of what I'm listening to, and I will sometimes associate things that I've listened to with what I was doing at the time, which is so crazy.
Hmm.
Like there was a time where I was driving, I think in Texas to Target, but I had Summertime Sadness by Lana Del Rey on in the car, and it was like such a
Hmm.
pivotal time, I think, because it was one of my first time driving in Texas and I was like terrified because everyone sucks there driving. But
Hmm.
yeah, I do end up associating like what maybe I was processing or listening to or multitasking with that thing, which
Hmm.
is really
Hmm.
weird but cool.
Yeah, that's interesting that your brain gets ahead of your hands
Hmm.
while you're crafting too. That's really
Hmm.
interesting.
My brain, I think, just moves very quickly, sometimes too quickly for me. Like that last little anecdote that I said, literally took many different turns, and it's because my brain is making connection after connection. It's definitely
Yeah,
the ADHD brain, but
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're making a lot of connections on the fly. Yeah, pulling stuff. I think one thing I loved from your conversation with Catherine was her talking about the difference between ritual and routine, because I feel like both of us are often revisiting our routines and like making
mm,
new routines, like making
mm,
like trying to rebel against the routine and like kind of in a relationship with the routine. And I think I would like to incorporate more ritual. Like I love that idea. And I think as part of the ritual, like I get so much pleasure out of listening to audiobooks while crafting, but I think I also want to balance that with like really putting my full attention and
mm,
awareness towards creating.
mm,
And like I think I forget who, I'm sure so many, but definitely Richard Rohr, but like a bunch of people
mhm,
talk about how um love is awareness. And so just like devoting my full awareness to like the thing in front of me is something I want to do more. I don't think that I can do it all the time.
mm,
But even like running, like not listening to audiobooks while running it's challenging, but
mhm.
I'd like to do that more to be able to like fully devote, like send love towards the thing I'm doing.
Oh, that really is so awesome. What a I my brain is blanking on the word. Like that is something to strive for, I think. A delicate
Hmm.
balance between being so fully present with what you're doing, but also sometimes you do. Like when you're cooking, I know my partner currently will put in an audiobook while cooking and something like that. But
Mhm.
that is so, so true. And it's
Yeah.
what you said about routines, about like, I know as a person, I need routines in order to like be okay and alive. But also, I am
Yeah.
constantly rebelling against the routine. Like, oh, I'm going to do this in the mornings and then do this and then switch it up. So I just also know that
Yeah.
routines are somehow inherently incompatible with my
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
creativity.
Yeah. It's so wild. Like I feel like I'm constantly resetting. And I don't know, like like the I tried to get into a morning workout routine this
Mm-hmm.
year and I did it like once a week consistently,
Mm-hmm.
twice a week less consistently.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think I also maybe need to like not overthink it too much
Yeah.
and just be like, yeah, once a week is a routine. Like waking up at 5 a.m. once a week, that's still a routine, even if it's like just
Mm-hmm.
once a week. Like routine doesn't necessarily need to be daily
Mm-hmm.
if it's more a routine of like a weekly thing I do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah. And I like not overthinking the joy too much that I get out of like listening to an audiobook while doing other stuff. Like it is like pure joy. Like like just
Say more about
yeah.
overthinking joy. I'm curious about that.
Like I don't wanna be hard on myself
Mm,
for really enjoying sewing while listening to Pride and Prejudice and be like,
yes.
ah, dang, like I should be devoting myself fully. Like it's a practice that I want to explore, but not be
Mm,
hard on myself for not
okay.
doing
Yeah, that makes total
because
sense.
yeah, listening to audiobooks while running or sewing, like or cooking just brings me so much joy that I don't want to overthink it to the point where I like then feel guilty for not.
Yeah, relatable. And I think like overthinking and feeling guilt also kind of ties into the productivity bit. And I know Catherine and I explored that a bit, but like I feel like we are, in the normal sense of the word, productivity oriented people. And I've also been unpacking that and just want to hear how that plays into your, creative routines, intentions, ritual, like as that stands.
Yes. So I have realized recently that my creative interests are fueled by things that will be utilitarian. Like
Mm.
the sewing clothing is like, this is sick. Now I don't even need to buy clothing. I can buy only secondhand fabrics and then like make my dream wardrobe. And so I think the productivity, I thought it was so interesting how you and Catherine differently defined productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think how I define productivity in my crafting is something that will be useful when it's completed.
Mm.
Um, so more examples of this are like when we were doing collages during ESC, during
Mm.
our service year, we did a lot of like spiritual collages. I think another word for like that is called like prophetic art, where you're like really
Mm.
inviting the spirit to create with you. Um, so we would do collages, and I would be, of course, very into the process of making it, but then also have in my mind's eye, like, I'm so excited to hang this on my wall. Like,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and the thing that we made during the our service year that I didn't like, there were a couple things that I made where I didn't want to hang them up because I didn't like them that much.
Mm.
And I think being able to sit with like that, even if it was a like maybe I didn't like it as much because the process brought up things that were challenging
Oh.
or yeah, like that like the creative is create like being creative is also uncomfortable and it's okay if the process ends up being bigger than the product. And like I think that that's also
Mm.
why I had a hard time journaling because I felt so weird that these pages would just exist. And like I feel weird creating
Mm.
knowing that I'm making something that will then have to exist and I'm gonna have to like either dispose of it or like I'm bringing something like I'm like bringing something that does not exist into existence and then you have to be responsible for its destruction or putting it on the wall. I'm like
Damn.
so I'm like so that's why I think I'm so into outlets of creativity that then have something that you can put on the wall at the end or wear or I sent Stephanie before this podcast a chair that I made, and like
Mm-hmm.
that is the ultimate utilitarian, is like making furniture.
So you can sit on it and make
So
more things.
I can sit on it while I do my other crafts. Yeah, and even more utilitarian is like crafting something so you don't have to buy it, like
Mm-hmm.
make thrift buy. So I think that is definitely what brought me into creating things and crafting. I think that it's a assumption that I want to interrogate a little bit more and probably do intentional work around making crafts that are like ugly or that I don't want to hang up on my wall, or like writing or just doing things that stay in a sketch pad, like where the purpose is just for it to exist
Mm-hmm.
and sit in the discomfort of creating something that now will never be destroyed. So
That's such a wow. That's so interesting because I am a hardcore journaler, and I have
Mhm.
stacks of books. I've mentioned, I think, before, um, from like 2009 onwards, and
Mhm.
I get where you're coming from because that some of that really just exists and it's out there, and
Mhm.
I like it. It is in this world, and I can, dispose of it or whatever. One thing I do like doing
Mhm.
is like interacting with it later. So, like reading something from
Mhm.
2010 is very fun every once in a while, but definitely I
Yeah.
think I relate to you in the sense that like I created a lot, especially in school, um, for the grade, and then also for my idea of like, will this look good if I put it on my wall? Like I
Mhm.
wanted it to be also very aesthetically pleasing as well.
Mhm.
So I agree with you there. And it's just like I wanted to create something that I'd be proud of and just like would be beautiful to look at, because I think all
Mhm.
humans, like, we desire beauty alongside all the necessary things that we need as humans to exist. But yeah, that is a very good point. But also when I'm journaling, I do regularly try to reckon with like what is happening on the page too. So
Mm.
also during the year when we were together, I did try something called The Artist's Way. It is a book
Mhm.
that kind of encourages the use of morning pages, I think is what she calls them. And basically, you can throw up or like word splat like on the page as long as you do 3 of them, because something will be unearthed, like something will come out, and you'll find yourself like
Mhm.
have these ideas like wellspring out from you. That's literally where this podcast came from. Like I literally was in one of those
Mhm.
moods like, "Ah, I feel like I should write. I don't know what to write about. I'm just going to like throw some shit on a page and look what happened."
Yeah. I love that. Do you have to do 3 pages? Is that the idea? You have to write 3 pages or just 3 things?
3 pages. So literally like in the notebook, oh, I had to Google it because I forgot what it was. It's by Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity. um, Put forth in 1992, I think. But yeah, in the recommendation of every day, there's like a prompt for every day. There are prompts, so you can go off of that too. But generally, it's just like open up whatever you're writing in and do like 3 full units of that. So like my notebooks are like
Mhm.
slightly smaller than a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So it's almost like my 3 pages might be bigger than other three people's 3 pages, but like it's not a competition also. So it's like, just to get it out there. Sometimes I would write super big because I didn't feel like, filling up the whole page with stuff. So,
Mhm.
and in a way it was like
That's so
I'm
funny.
cheating, but also I was able to notice like, wow, this I'm annoyed right now. I was able to really like be aware of what was happening in my brain and in my body. Like, wow, I have a lot of resistance to this. What is going on there?
Mhm. Yeah. I love the idea of shifting productivity to more just like creating three pages.
Hmm.
And that is creative productivity. I feel like writing fits in so many different, like journaling, I
Hmm.
guess. or writing, like, I don't know, writing about absolutely anything. It could be prayer, it could be like
Mhm.
poetry, it could be like a mental health
Mhm.
journey check-in. Like it fits in so many, and that's like another with the multitasking thing.
Mhm.
Like you're really like writing can really be multitasking and checking a lot of boxes.
Mhm.
Um, so like when I do bullet journaling,
I
and that
remember you had some
is
amazing.
still,
You had an amazing bullet
yeah,
journey journal. You had that.
yes.
That happened.
Yeah, and I still maintain it. Sometimes before I can do like cleaning, I have to make a whole spread and then add a little bullet that says like clean
I
house.
love
And I'm like,
this.
okay, the bullet journal told me to do it, so it's time to do it. So yeah, I sometimes have to make a spread in order to start things. But yeah, I find it very satisfying. Even creating the spreads is sometimes even more satisfying than using them.
Yes, agree.
But with bullet journaling, sometimes you do habit tracking, and then if I like journal and my habits are like, the habits that I'm tracking are maybe like prayer and workout and like journal or like write and
Mm.
creativity. Like what are we like if I write something, what boxes are we checking? Because it can check a lot of boxes in the
That's
bullet
so
journal.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
You get to check all the boxes, maybe. Maybe that's your like way out.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe it doesn't, yeah, I guess bullet journaling and habit tracking, like you need to define the habit. But yeah, I don't know, just kind of interesting. And it's like, do you really, I never, I feel like when I'm journaling, I just like write something and then I'm like, all right, it disappeared. So I never like reread something as I'm writing it.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I don't think that I would be able to like close the journal and then be like, okay, how would we define that session, Liv? Like I wouldn't be able to do that. So
Wow.
I don't know, but yeah, just kind of an interesting writing is definitely I would like to do more. But for a while I struggled with it because I felt weird about making pages that would never go away.
Mm.
But that's life. So
It's like the internet. It's kind of there, whether we want it or not.
right, right. Well, and if you journal in a cloud storage platform, or like if you store something in cloud storage, it actually could be more environmentally damaging than just writing on a single sheet of paper, which is because cloud storage takes up energy.
Wow. Actually, okay, that's could be a whole nother conversation about like the environmental like consequences of certain avenues
Yeah,
of creativity, but like that might have to be a whole nother episode.
yeah, truly. Yeah.
Wait, were you doing something with environment? Because I know you went to business school. That tracks, and based on your earlier
Yes.
earlier story of like recruiting your sister. But yeah, weren't you in and around like kind of environmental focus for that?
Yeah, I feel like where I really started thinking about the cloud storage was when I studied abroad in India for a month, and we were there studying environmental, um, I don't know, I guess like the intersection between business, the environment, and like emerging
Mm.
economies. And New Delhi, where we were, is the center, it's like the international center for electronic waste recycling. And
Oh.
that'll get you. Like if you think about electronic waste for too long, like it's a huge problem. And things like there are certain things that can be more easily recycled than others.
Mm.
But ultimately, a lot of it gets recycled in a lot of electronic waste gets recycled in New Delhi, and it can be dangerous for the informal workers who do the actual recycling
Oh
process.
man.
Um, yeah, so while we were there, I think that I might have been journaling at that time, and I was journaling in like a tiny notebook, like
Hmm.
that I was like, well, it's a small page, so like that was, um, so I think that I like somehow thought that that was like better for the environment because it was a small
Mm.
page, but yeah, I don't know. It's definitely the yeah, while we were there, we talked about the environmental impact of cloud
Wow.
storage and how it's actually at this point better for the environment to write on paper than to like journal somewhere if it will be stored indefinitely in a cloud. So
Wow. I
yeah.
learn something new every day. That's depressing. I know, and I'm just thinking about like the production of this podcast. What's going on? Yeah, it's definitely something to be cognizant of too. Like I'm just in some of these episodes, the idea of sustainability and equity, has come up, and it's just when we create with those things in mind, I think we're more intentional about what we put out. So that's also another thing to incorporate. Like in my practices, I know, and like just generally for the world, I think if we paid a little more attention to that, then we would be in a better spot.
Yeah, I think there is an opportunity for creativity to be part of a
Oh,
solution too.
absolutely.
And yeah, like I think I it's like interesting making I feel like each individual is making their own decision on like make thrift buy of when something's worth buying.
Mm.
And like it's I think interesting for me to be like recognizing my own decisions of when I feel like fabric is worth buying as opposed to trying to thrift a fabric that I think will be close enough. Um, so yeah, and like sometimes I think I make like the wildly wrong decisions, like just because of expediency.
Mm.
Um, so, but yeah, I think there's a fabulous store in Denver, ReCreative. Have you been there
I've
yet?
not. I need to go.
Oh man, I'm so excited for you.
I'll link it. I'll link
It's
it
a
in the description below. Yeah.
special, special place. I feel like they basically sponsored my whole wedding. Like they were, they are just it's just so fabulous. You can get just fabric. They have old sewing machines.
Oh.
They have there's like certain crafts really come in and out of vogue.
Mhm.
Like stamping was really
Mhm.
in, scrapbooking has come in and out of vogue
Mhm.
and in like they have a lot of like retro crafts that are like less in vogue. Bottle caps,
Oh my gosh.
random stuff, beads. Yeah.
Ah,
So yeah, that was a really a big place for me was recreative.
I think I need to talk to these people because I just looked them up. They're a community art center, so creative reuse store and community art center, nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting creativity, community, and environmental stewardship through creative reuse and arts education. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Just like a
And
collective.
yeah, it's like the creative reuse. Like
Hmm.
we need to be employing creativity to get into a more circular system. So, but yeah, and I think using old fabric for me in like a sewing capacity is a good place to start.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that if we do kind of lean this direction, not only are we like creatively solving problems, but we're also having more ownership over both the problems themselves and the solutions to them. So that makes me
Yeah.
happy. There is hope in the world. You just have to sometimes find it, but that makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, I think the question of what to do with a craft after I've created it is a big question for me. And I think that using more secondhand materials has helped me reduce that stress or like is one answer to that question for me. Yeah.
That is very cool. I guess I wanted to ask you about what you're working on right now, what your favorite project to date is. Just something, it doesn't even have to be like anything good. As we were talking about, sometimes what we create, we like low key hate it. And just the process of doing it is, what brought us to this place.
Yeah. So right now, hopefully this comes out after And even if it doesn't, that's okay. But I'm currently making my big thing right now is quilted apparel.
Oh my
Um,
God.
so yeah, that's my thing right now. Um, and so I'm making Jonah, my husband, a quilted sweatshirt, and I got fabric new, so it was like, a whole decision
Hmm.
to get. Oh, you know what? Actually, I got it from a secondhand website. So never mind. But I did get it. I didn't use it from my own
Hmm.
like sewing supply.
Hmm.
That he's a knitter, a fellow crafter. He's a knitter. So I got knit like a fabric that has a knitting seam. And I'm making this quilted sweatshirt.
Wow.
So that's my yeah, it's very gift. And then so I made a quilted scarf, quilted scarves. That was a good entryway into
Hmm.
the quilted apparel because it's very um, simple lines and stuff. So yeah, and then I actually made am in the process of making a wedding quilt. Um, so which I believe I believe you signed at the
Oh my
wedding.
God. I was
So
like in my head
yeah.
about to be like, oh, like the magic baby making blanket from the proposal. But
I'm not
oh my
familiar.
gosh. Okay, well, go watch that movie. But I realized that we did sign sign a quilt square at your wedding. I thought that was
Yeah,
so beautiful and personal and just like really intimate. I love that.
it was like the wedding felt very. There were a lot of things where either Jonah or I were like, "Oh, we must have
Hmm.
that," and like cheese curds, the quilt was one for me, as well as cheese curds. But it was interesting because I had this in my head that I really wanted to do this. And it was, Catherine also referenced Hamilton.
Yeah.
I too will reference Hamilton. But like the I think it's about like the Federalist Papers
Mm.
where it's like John Adams wrote 2 and then Hamilton wrote the other 75, and that's basically what happened with these quilt
Hmm.
squares. Like I was so excited about it, did 15, and then my mother-in-law now did like 100. So she was the true MVP of this quilt. So she did just such a fabulous job, and she's a much more experienced quilter than I am, so they turned out much better than had I done them
Oh
all.
my
Um,
gosh.
I'm very novice quilter. I did one quilt prior to this, so yeah, and so now it's fully pieced together. So for quilts, you like piece together the topper,
Hmm.
and then you make a quilt
Hmm.
sandwich with like a batting in the center, and then like fabric on either
Hmm.
side, and then quilt over it. I honestly didn't even realize that quilting and sewing were like the same thing until very recently. Like I didn't realize that you could just quilt with like a somewhat regular sewing machine. Um, so that's my big thing right now. So the quilt is sandwiched. It is now the next step is I need to like add some fabric to the backing fabric because it's like, you know, an inch too short on either side. So hopefully by our 1 year anniversary, this wedding quilt will be done.
Aw, that is so cute.
But yeah, it was a dream. I'm so happy that it got made. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. No, I hope that pans out for you. No pressure, no forced deadlines. But I also feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the university town that I lived near in and around for undergrad, there's a whole quilting museum, just like in the downtown. Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny. That's
So if you're
awesome.
ever in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and you want to go to the quilt museum,
Absolutely. I hope to find myself at Harrisonburg, Virginia one day at that museum. I'm just like struck. I'm struck by how challenging it is and how casually people do it.
mm,
Like there are so many people who are just casual quilters, and it just takes so much time. It's like we could just make a blanket from a single piece of fabric, but instead we don't do that at all. We make, just the patterns. It's so incredible. So I would love to go to the quilting
Oh
museum.
my gosh. Yes. And there's
Yeah.
someone that I should probably connect with you with offline because I feel like you have very similar vibes when it comes to quilting. So I will remember that.
Yeah, I would love to be connected. The other big thing that I'm working on right now, well, I'm not working on it yet. The thing that I'd like to start working on is more like
Oh,
pottery.
yes.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to, in addition to sometimes not listening to audiobooks while crafting, I would love to do more embodied
Mm,
practices because sewing to me at least is somewhat cerebral.
mm,
Like I feel like it's very like mentally visual
mm,
and you're cutting fabric, so it's tactile, and I'm a very, very tactile
mm-hmm.
person. So you're cutting things, but then once the cutting is done, you're just like piecing it together. So I feel like you're using your hands, but it's not quite like you're certainly not using your entire body.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm looking to do more pottery.
That's so cool because yeah, you do have the pumping of the wheel and you literally your hands
Hmm.
like calibrate the mate like the structure of whatever the clay that you're throwing. So that is crazy. And you're like
Yeah.
bending over, you're trying to like not have it collapse. So I'm and then you have like the goo of the clay, which could be a good or negative, like depending on what you want. But like I'm very excited about this for you.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't know how to throw
Hmm.
clay, so I might just start with like going to Michael's and getting clay and just, seeing what comes.
I love
So,
that.
but that is also like I think too working on more stuff that can just be ugly. Like maybe like I'm like maybe more writing, I think. Yeah, because that can just be
Or you
ugly.
can write on the clay.
Yes. Yeah.
One thing I think about is how, like, in elementary school, like, our art teacher in our program was, like, really, I want to say, really amazing. We, like, just experimented with so many different mediums. Like, we did, like, there's a stint in, like, pointillism. We did the clay. We did, like, pastels. We did just, like, it was so interesting how we were just introduced to all these mediums and what, stuck or
Mhm.
didn't is pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so incredible that we had access to just like anything you want, but within I guess the outcome did sometimes have guidance.
Mhm.
The thing that strikes me is like why the heck does art classes why do they have grades? Did you have grades in art class?
So I think about it in terms of like elementary school and then middle school onward. I stopped taking art as an elective. Sad. Choir took over my life in high school, but I stopped it. I stopped art in middle school. In elementary school, it was always like a 1 to 4 scale, like 4 being like the best, like exceeds expectations or I don't know, meets expectations. And then in
Hmm.
middle school, definitely, I remember our teacher was like, if you show up and you try your best to apply like all the principles that we're like learning about and like talking, it doesn't matter what the outcome is, you just like have to be there and fully present. And I feel like that's what determined your grade, even though I thought it was stupid too. I feel
Hmm.
like everyone took the class because it was quote an easy A, but like it, I mean, in a way, it like should be an easy A because you like show up and you're participating and you're trying something maybe new that you've never done before. So that's how it was for me. I don't know how it was for you.
I don't totally recall how it worked in middle school, but I do remember in high school I took fashion. That was kind of art-ish. Um, I took a crafts class actually, so
That's awesome.
and then I took some other, but people got B's. Like some people did get
What
B's,
the hell?
and I know in high school, and I, I there's some other art class that I took in high school that's not coming to me, but yeah, I don't know. I think that is just like I don't know if I feel like it shouldn't even be like everyone gets A's. I think it should be ungraded.
Okay, yeah,
But
I get that.
I don't know. Maybe everyone should get A's because I don't know if people would not take an ungraded class because it's ungraded. But yeah, I have or like music.
Mhm.
People just
Yeah.
not getting a good grade in music. Like, I suppose people extend that argument very far to just no grades anywhere. Um, which I don't know. I guess when in the art context, I just definitely appreciate it. So,
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, also some of the grading, especially when it came to music, was like, did you practice? It's like kind of an incentive to practice, I guess, because you
yeah,
really can't enjoy, like you cannot have mastery of a craft without practicing. So I get that. I get that piece.
yeah. What are you working on right now? I don't think that in your past podcasts you've talked about like what projects are big right now for you.
Thank you for asking me that. So I just recorded an episode about the year compass and what a
Hmm.
ritualistic tool that is for closing one year and opening another. So I guess that's one project. I wouldn't call it like super artistic, but it is very important to me and like my creative practice. And honestly, like this podcast, like it's such a
Hmm.
fun, endeavor because like there's so many pieces to it. There's like reaching out for people and like part of it is, talking to folks and being like, well, you are such a cool creative person and like I'd love to have you. And like sometimes it is convincing the person that like that they are cool and like worthy of talking to, which is like a little sad, but also kind of
Hmm.
it's nice to be able to like approach someone and be like, you're so cool, and they're like, oh really.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's that. And then I let's see, I'm also like, I love interior design. I grew up watching like a lot of HGTV, like on vacation. We didn't have cable when I was growing up, but when we would go on
Hmm.
vacation or
Hmm.
elsewhere to someone's house that did have cable, my mom would turn it on, and
Hmm.
I just love the idea of like totally transforming a space. So I feel like I'm getting a tiny taste of that as I am apartment hunting. So I'm like, just like
Hmm.
reimagining the space, if I were to claim it as my own. So that's a lot of kind of the, I guess, projects, nothing formal, um, outside of like work stuff that is checking a box and like in a process or line that needs to be passed off to somebody else. But in terms of like personal stuff, and it is only the 10th
Hmm.
day of the year. Like I feel like I've also not had any real time to really establish like goals and stuff. I admitted in my last episode that I am only halfway through the year compass still. So I want to finish that and like out, get it out there. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on.
Yeah. I love that thinking about apartment hunting as like a interior decorating fantasy. Yeah,
For sure.
I love
And
that.
there are limitations, I guess, on the places like, are you allowed to paint the walls? Are you not allowed to paint the walls? There's an Instagram account that I follow where it's like renter friendly design, which is kind of fun, like very temporary
Mm-hmm.
things that look very permanent, but like that you could take down like in an instant if you needed to. So that is very fun.
Yeah. We did that for our bathroom here. We added like uh contact paper.
Yes.
Yeah. Our apartment is like very 80s and it's always like it's I was like, oh, okay, academic. Like it's I was like, oh, it's so grad student. And now after living it in 6 months, it's like, a new fridge would be nice. But yeah, the renter friendly stuff. So yeah, then we did a little contact paper update to the bathroom. Jonah did a fabulous job. He was really the foreman on that
I love
project.
that.
Yeah.
I did see a nightmare video of someone trying, like someone hanging from a piece of contact paper, like trying to pull it down the wall, and were supported by their full body weight. So Godspeed when it comes to
That's so funny. Yeah.
laughs in
Yeah.
terror.
No, I'm confident that you will find a place and deck it out.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, make a little nest.
Make a nest, yes, just like our dog does. Like they spin around like 5,000 times to like make themselves comfortable.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you one other question, and that would be what creativity means to you in your life.
I think creativity is playfulness to
Mm,
me, and it's an opportunity to not take myself too
mhm.
seriously and to just be playful. Which is why the utilitarian obsession is a struggle. It's definitely something that I am always, yeah.
True. I think they can coexist though.
Yeah, you think so?
Mm-hmm.
Say more.
Say more. Like if you were to create like a chair, but it was like a themed chair, like have you seen Little Shop of Horrors? The musical?
No.
Okay. There's a plant in that show that is a puppet. It's been puppeteered, but it's like a really fun like moving piece. So like if the chair was like a Venus flytrap and it was like saying, I think there's
Mm,
ways to be playful with stuff that is utilitarian. So like, but I understand what you mean when you're talking about like what the intention is behind it. Is it like to create something that you can use later
hmm.
versus like, oh, let's see how this goes, you know? So I do get that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that, yeah, that it's the intention, I think, is something that I need to pay more attention to and incorporate more ritual and less interest in how it will turn out because the process is very playful for me. Yeah.
That is good.
I feel that way about running too. Like that's why I just love trail running and like discovering trail running totally changed my relationship to running because it's so playful. It's like frolicking through the woods
Mm.
and like bouncing off rocks and going with your friends.
Mm,
It's so yeah, so I think my relationship with trail running I think is also like creative.
I love that. I went one time with you, and I remember being
Yeah.
quite broken down like 20 minutes before we were back at the parking lot. And that's on me. I was very out of shape, but it was fun. It was fun. And I like doing like the dodging and the stepping on like twigs and all that stuff. But like, whew,
Yeah,
kudos.
I recall that. That was a blast. I think that was one of my first trail runs too, because I was still that was like very new at that point. Um, and it's so, because like part of what I love about working
Mm,
out is having an end goal
mm,
of something to train for.
mm.
So I'm sensing some
That
threads,
tracks.
sensing some threads, sensing some threads in my hobbies.
Some threads in
Um,
your sewing.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, some common threads. But I think that it's an avenue to be playful.
That is a good answer. Agree. We love to, in conclusion of this episode, emit some good vibes and goodwill to Olivia's creative endeavors. I love that you are out there doing the law school, but also just like making so much time for your own, your own creativity, your own playfulness.
Thank you so much, Steph. It's been so special to be on your podcast. It's really been an honor.
Thank you for sharing your creativity, your playfulness, and I will catch up with you soon. Thanks so much for listening, y'all. Thank you so, so much for listening to this episode of the Creatives Off the Clock podcast. If you would like to continue the conversation, you can find me and more podcast content on Instagram at SPW Design Media. Henry Matisse says that creativity takes courage, so I wish you the space, time, and intention to be courageous, to be curious, and to make some creative choices. I'll see you next time.